I'm Ashton Addison from Blockwest Capital for Investment Pitch Media, and today on the Crypto Coin Show we have Bob Bodily, the CEO and founder of Toniq. Bob, welcome to the show, and thank you for taking the time.
Ashton, thanks so much for having me. Really excited to talk all things Bitcoin and Ordinals today.
Definitely, there's a lot to learn about Ordinals. I'm interested in the ICP ecosystem as well. I know that's up and coming, but I feel like Bitcoin and the growing ecosystem is something that not a lot of people are getting into yet, but it's going to be very important moving forward. I know you have a leg up already working in that part for a while now, so I'd love to dive into your insights. But first, let's start from the top on just a little bit about what you and your team have built at Toniq, how that relates to the whole thing, and then we'll dive into all the details.
Cool. Yeah, so me and my team, we've been building on the Internet Computer Protocol for almost 2 years now. Mainnet launched for ICP May of 2021, and that was about when we started building. We built a wallet. We built an NFT marketplace. We have the largest NFT marketplace on ICP called Toniq. We recently rebranded from Entrepot. Entrepot is our French port marketplace name. Recently doing some brand consolidation to Toniq. And so we've been building on ICP because it makes a lot of interesting trade-offs that makes it very scalable, very fast, very performant. For those that don't know what ICP is, you could think about it like decentralized web services. So think about what AWS offers you. Amazon, they'll give you compute, hosting, and storage. And it's affordable storage. It's good scalable compute. It's hosting services for front ends. You can do all of that in a decentralized way on ICP. So you can store your assets on ICP. You can store your front ends on ICP. You can host front ends directly from a smart contract on ICP. Data storage is affordable and compute is affordable. And so it's really trying to be like the blockchain of the web. Pick any social media application and run it 100% on chain on ICP. And so that was the reason why we were interested in ICP. Like, we didn't have to cobble together different kinds of like Ethereum plus IPFS plus maybe some Arweave and maybe some AWS still for some business logic. We just want a kind of a unified cloud platform. So, built on ICP for a solid 2 years almost. And then there are some recent Bitcoin integrations into the protocol layer that we were chatting about earlier. And you can actually sign Bitcoin transactions directly from an ICP smart contract. And then they also have, it's like a wrapped version of Bitcoin on ICP as well called CKBTC. And so that means you can, wrap Bitcoin in onto ICP. It's kind of like a Bitcoin sidechain in that sense. And you can leverage the speed and cost of the internet computer instead of the speed and cost of Bitcoin. So very fast transactions, like 5-second finality, and very, very low fees. Essentially no gas fees, no network fees. So there's a lot to love about ICP. Recently been kind of pivoting and building Bioniq. Bioniq is our Ordinals marketplace, and we'll be building that entirely on ICP. So you'll be able to trade Ordinals on Bioniq using Bitcoin and CKBTC as the main currency. So that's kind of
It's a lot of moving pieces, especially for people that they've heard of NFTs and maybe they have one or two of sort of the blue chip ones that they've got off an NFT marketplace. But there's so many up and coming ecosystems where you can get NFTs and transfer them or use them or trade them with lower fees and faster, that I think people are still trying to figure out all of the different moving pieces, especially when Bitcoin came in with the Ordinals. Even people with NFTs were like, okay, this is another a little bit added complexity. What exactly is the difference between this and the NFT that I have on Ethereum that I just bought off of the OpenSea marketplace? But I feel like it's important because the Bitcoin network is one of the strongest, most decentralized blockchain protocols ever. So to be able to add extra functionality on that, I feel like is a huge added bonus.
Yeah, a lot of people have been talking about it like they've been using words like inscribing instead of minting. and then like digital artifacts instead of NFTs. It's kind of these more permanent sounding solutions. So it's like etching your artwork into stone as opposed to like writing it on paper. That's the analogy that people like to use, where Bitcoin being the most decentralized, secure, censorship resistant blockchain, being able to inscribe or put data on chain in an immutable way, and it's a pay once, store forever model, forever so far, where you don't really have the pay once, store forever in other places. That's kind of a hard business model to achieve, and so I think that's another really interesting thing that people enjoy about putting artwork on Bitcoin directly.
And I've saw some of these major NFT collections, people being able to inscribe them or mint them on ordinals on Bitcoin. Is that creating a new NFT altogether, or can you take NFTs that you have in some of the popular ecosystems and merge it over there, or create a duplicate that's tied to the original? How exactly does that work?
Yeah, so it's probably worth mentioning the kind of array of protocols that are starting to be built on Bitcoin. So leveraging Bitcoin as a storage layer, you can have some kind of messaging protocol that stores messages on Bitcoin. You can take advantage of the security and the decentralization of Bitcoin at the messaging layer, meaning you can't double spend your messages. The messages have a single order, and it's all kind of written into the Bitcoin blockchain itself. Some of these standards are like BRC-20. This is a fungible token standard. There's ORC-20, which is a relatively new kind of competing fungible token standard. There's also DRC-20 and BRC-30 and BRC-21 and SRC-20, like lots of different fungible token standards. And then if we move into the non-fungible token arena, we have BRC-721, BRC-721E, or GBRC-721. And these are all different non-fungible token standards trying to bring programmability to Bitcoin. So one of the ones that you mentioned was the BRC-721E. This is it's trying to bridge between Ethereum and Bitcoin. And so the way that BRC-721E works is you add a function to a smart contract, which is essentially a burn. I don't know if it's like its own smart contract or whether you build it into your own Ethereum smart contract, but there's a function somewhere where it's like a burn, and you burn your token using this function and you give it a Bitcoin receiving address. And this basically whitelists that Bitcoin receiving address to be able to inscribe it on Bitcoin. So then you go to that address and you say, yeah, I want to inscribe. You inscribe the Ethereum contract address and the token ID and other metadata if you want. And then that inscription becomes your new NFT. So you've essentially burned it on the Ethereum blockchain, and now you've inscribed it to life again on Bitcoin. It does use pointers still. So it points back to the contract and then grabs where the metadata is stored, grabs where the image is stored. And so it could be still stored on IPFS or somewhere else like that. But the BRC-721E doesn't specifically say where you have to store your data. So if you wanted to, you could have an indexer that essentially goes to the contract address, grabs the image, grabs the metadata, stores them in kind of companion inscriptions, and now you've essentially burned an Ethereum NFT and you've inscribed it on Bitcoin. So yeah, lots of these standards, popping up, people trying to do interesting smart contract type functionality directly on Bitcoin.
Very interesting, Bob, and thank you for explaining that. And maybe you could elaborate on some of the reasons why someone who has a very expensive NFT worth tens of thousands or more would want to move that over to Bitcoin. Is it just the strength of the network, or would there be other advantages?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways it feels kind of silly because from my perspective, if you look at an NFT, you have different layers. One layer is artwork, one layer is community and culture, one layer is, how can you use it? Can you use it in a game? Can you use it as an access pass? Another layer is can you use it for verification purposes? Or so take all of these layers, and I think a lot of them are tied to, they're blockchain specific. So if you want to have utility in your community and it's an Ethereum project, then if you burn it over to Bitcoin, you could lose out on a lot of the community ecosystem benefits of owning that NFT in the first place. If it was an NFT that was just the artwork and you just loved the art and you wanted to preserve the artwork forever, you could burn it on Ethereum and then inscribe it on Bitcoin, or you could leave it on Ethereum and inscribe it to Bitcoin. I don't know that it's an either or necessarily. And so I think one of the big value propositions of storing data on Bitcoin is that it will just last forever as an enduring, decentralized database. And so having multiple means of storing your artwork, I think, is a good way to perhaps even increase the value of your artwork. So from that use case, I think it could be interesting. I know as a collection, some collections are thinking about bridging over, and that also might make sense. If you're a collection on Ethereum and you might want to say, well, we're going to be bridging over to Bitcoin, everyone can go use these tools to bridge over. So something like that might also make sense.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And I'm curious on where you see the growth and the potential for this birth of ordinals on Bitcoin compared to when NFTs started on Ethereum, and just the ease of use of going to a marketplace, and everyone seems to have an Ethereum ERC-20 wallet to easily store their NFTs. Are you seeing on the Bitcoin side the growth being just as strong and just as fast, or are there other barriers to entry that are still to overcome to grow Bitcoin NFTs more?
Yeah, I think if you tried to get involved with Ordinals in February, you would be very disappointed with the user experience. You had to have a Sparrow wallet. You had to manually manage your own UTXOs to make sure you're not spending your Ordinals. And it was very complicated. But, fast forward 4 months to where we are now, and it's a very similar experience. You have browser extension-based wallets. You can load them up with Bitcoin. You can go to any number of marketplaces that, have, it's not complete parity with a Blur or an OpenSea, but you have generally good collection filters. You have good metadata support. You have good analytics on collections, and it's generally pretty easy to just go in and buy what you want. Magic Eden has a good Ordinals marketplace. Ordinals Wallet has another one, and the Unisat is probably the other. Between those three, they probably share the majority of the volume so far. Mm-hmm. And user experience is really good. It's not all the way there. And that's kind of what we're trying to do with Bioniq, is how can we take it, how can we get the next 10x in user experience? And so, we're making some trade-offs compared to these other marketplaces. Most marketplaces use something called PSBTs. That's a partially signed Bitcoin transaction. Essentially, if I have one Bitcoin and you have a really cool ordinal, you could sign, essentially signing half of the transaction that says, I will give you this ordinal if you give me one BTC, and then I can sign the other half, and it's a trustless swap, essentially, leveraging Bitcoin technology. So the majority of marketplaces use this PSBT tech, which is really good. The downside is it's slow and expensive. Expensive because you're paying network fees, and slow because, Bitcoin has probabilistic finality. So it could take 10 minutes or it could take 120 minutes, depending on when blocks fall. And so with Bioniq, what we wanted to do is we wanted to wrap Bitcoin over, wrap ordinals over, and give you 5-second transaction times always, no matter what, and no network fees and no gas fees, and make it a really, really easy and great user experience. So easy to log in. easy to top up with Bitcoin, easy to kind of get into the ecosystem, and then have it just be really, really fast. Like a layer one or layer two kind of Bitcoin trading experience. So
Yeah. Yeah. No, I'm looking forward to seeing that. And what's the progress on Bioniq? Are you guys just releasing it?
yeah, Bioniq should be released in the next couple of weeks. It's been kind of a longer road than other Bitcoin marketplaces. We started early February building. As we were building, we had to build wrapper tech, kind of like Emblem Vault. We also had to build wallet tech because we have to support both sides of the wrap. We have to support the Bitcoin side and the Bioniq ICP side. And so we can't just leverage the existing Bitcoin wallet. So building a wallet and building a wrapper and building a marketplace. So, throw all of that together and you have a lot of moving pieces, and you got to make sure you get the tech right. You got to make sure it's all secure. You got to get good code reviews. So yeah, it's coming. It's coming.
Yeah, no, definitely a lot of moving pieces. But I feel like we're still early on the Bitcoin market, NFT marketplace side. So there is time. I haven't seen any crazy explosions yet, though I've heard of many people who, the early adopters that are benefiting from it. I'm curious, as the NFT marketplaces for Bitcoin emerge and more collections become more widely available and maybe become widely popular, we sort of saw with the Ethereum NFT collections, the punks, the Bored Apes, some blue chips, that these people who even had free mints of these NFTs way back in the day now have NFTs that are worth hundreds of thousands or tens of thousands. Are you seeing an emergence of some blue chip ordinals or Bitcoin NFTs, or is it those same ones that you talked about where you can sort of merge them over, or are there new collections as well?
Yeah, definitely new collections. DGods did a Bitcoin DGods collection. Floor for that is around one BTC right now. Wow. There's also a couple collections like Ordinal Maxi Biz that's being run by ZK Shark. That collection has a floor around 2 or 3 Bitcoin right now. And then there are other collections like big 10K collections that have done really, really well with lots of volume, like Bitcoin Frogs, or a few others. Like most of these are native Bitcoin collections, where they've kind of been able to capitalize on the unique trends and rarity attributes and community of the Bitcoin network. And then there are others as well. Like you can see I'm sporting my on-chain monkey hat here. Just bought into the on-chain monkey ecosystem last week because I really like the founders. Danny and Amanda are doing a really good job of pushing the boundaries on the technical front. They were one of the first, if not the first, 10K 100% on-chain collections on Ethereum. So they actually have code that generates the NFT, and it's all on-chain. So they're taking, their expertise there, and they were the first generative 10K collection on Bitcoin as well. And Danny's been pushing the boundaries on kind of how can you generate art straight from the blockchain. And so their upcoming collection, Dimensions, is actually going to be a 3D collection, but it will be all generated. It'll be generated all on chain via code as well. Wow. So there's lots of interesting ways to kind of succeed as an NFT collection on Bitcoin.
Great to know, and thank you for giving some examples there. That's a decent floor price for Ordinals just being one of the newest NFT ecosystems. And I feel like right now with the conditions of the market, Bitcoin's sort of being boring, sideways, a little down. There's not a lot of interest, but I feel like when that time comes, when the 4-year cycle gets to that point and it starts rising, the whole ecosystem could probably rise with the tides.
Yeah. I've seen more experimentation on Bitcoin in the last 4 months than I've seen in maybe the last 3 years on Bitcoin. There are a lot of people coming in from Hedera or Cardano or Solana or Ethereum, where they've always held Bitcoin and they've always been Bitcoiners, but they haven't been able to build very easily on Bitcoin because it's been very hard. But with the advent of Ordinals and these kind of meta protocols that sit on top, now you have this layer of experimentation where builders can come in and finally start to do more interesting things on Bitcoin. And so there have been a lot of people kind of returning to their mother chain, in a sense.
The mother chain. Love it,
Yeah.
Bob. And moving forward with Toniq and Bioniq, what do you think is going to be that aha moment that creates that hockey stick effect? Will it just be the industry overall ready to adopt and more NFT collecting and trading, or is it some kind of user experience update? How else can we drive more mainstream adoption towards this tech?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and it's a question I think about a lot. Building on ICP and Bitcoin. I think for us, our strategy with Bioniq is how can we make the user experience, 10 to 100x better, and how can we give people, like the Coinbase or the Robinhood of Bitcoin NFTs, essentially. Let's make it really, really easy. Let's make it really intuitive, and let's make it really fast. And I think our target market, I think the Ordinals community is still fairly small. There have been some big collectors coming in, kind of getting their feet wet, kind of the more innovator type in investors. But the early majority, late majority parts of the crypto community, I think that's really who we want to target with Bioniq. We want to bring in anyone that's ever owned any crypto anywhere, and we want to make it really easy for them to get started on Bitcoin. Let's bring them to Bitcoin. Let's show them how ICP can make Bitcoin better, and that's kind of our strategy with Bioniq.
Very cool. Looking forward to it. And what's the best way for people to follow along with the launch of Bioniq and just to learn more about Toniq and what your team's working on?
Yeah, I think you can always follow me on Twitter. I'm very active. It's just at Bob Bodily. You can also follow Bioniq on Twitter. We're a little bit less active on the Bioniq account, but it's at Bioniq Market. That's Bioniq with a Q, just like Toniq. Toniq ends with a Q. And you can look at our Explorer. We have an Ordinals Explorer that's live right now at bioniq.io. Those are probably the three best ways to stay involved.
Very cool. Thank you so much, Bob. I will leave all those links in the description box below as well. Appreciate you coming on to speak about the ICP ecosystem, about Bitcoin, Ordinals. I think this is going to be huge moving forward. It's just a matter of when. So it's good to learn about it now. So thank you so much, and let's follow up in the near future.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Ashton.